Well, on today's show, we have Rabbi Jason Sobel. Rabbi, thank you so much for taking the time and chatting with me.
Shalom. It's great to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, let's get started into this conversation this evening. Won't you take our listeners on a journey? How you became an author, a minister of the gospel, and journey of your life. I know you have a powerful testimony. If you don't mind sharing that.
Yeah, of course. I grew up in the Holy Land, New Jersey, where there were more Jews than in Jerusalem. Grew up going to synagogue, Hebrew school, had my bar mitzvah at the age of 13, became a son of the commandments. Eventually found myself working in the recording studio as a DJ and training to be an engineer. Looked at the lives of all these famous people around me and said, there has to be more to life than just this. Went on a spiritual journey, was studying with my rabbi, but also was studying martial arts, Eastern philosophy, and religion. And one day I was meditating, and my soul left my body, went through the clouds into heaven, and I encountered this king on this throne in this glorious light. And I didn't know anything about Jesus, but I knew that was him seated on that throne. Felt the
Mm,
power of God pulsate through my body. He told me I was called to serve him. Next thing I know, I was down in my body, shaking under the power of heaven, had no idea what this meant. My best friend came to faith. He was not Jewish. He said, Jason, could you tell the difference between the Old and the New Testament? I said, sure. He read me this passage about the crucifixion. I said, New Testament. He said, let me read you another passage. He was bruised for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities, and by his stripes we're healed. I said, that's the New Testament. He said, no, that's Isaiah 53, the Jewish prophet, speaking 700 years before Messiah ever walked the face of the earth. I began to be provoked to jealousy. He invited me to a Messianic congregation. I went with him, and it was there that ultimately I received the Messiah. And that really began my journey. When I read the New Testament for the first time, I was blown away how Jewish it was,
mm,
how all the Messianic prophecies from the Old were fulfilled in connection to Jesus coming in the New, his Hebrew name Yeshua. And that really gave me a passion to learn to connect the Old and the New. And my mom found the Bible and said, what is this that I found in your room? You joined a cult. Go meet with the rabbi. So I had to take out my Hebrew scriptures, my Old Testament, underline all the Messianic prophecies and promises in preparation to go meet with him. And that was really the beginning of this idea of fusion, of connecting the old and the new in order to see the Bible in a high definition. Did all sorts of things and went to Bible college, went to seminary, studied in Israel, and was living in California, leading a few different communities, where I ultimately got a call from Kathie Gifford, who had been to Israel and had her life changed by seeing the Bible through a Jewish perspective. And she said, would you write this book with me on Israel? It's called The Rock, the Road, and the Rabbi, that went on to become a New York Times bestseller, a popular book on journeying through Israel. Then eventually got invited to be part of the Chosen TV series, so I've been a spiritual advisor on that, and have written a number of books, Mysteries of the Messiah, and including our new book, Signs and Secrets of the Messiah, a fresh look at the miracles of Jesus.
yeah. So you mentioned Kathy Lee Gifford. Did y'all ever talk about, back in the day when she used to be on her talk show with Regis?
Yeah, the funny thing is, when I was growing up as a kid, getting ready for school, I grew up outside of New York City, not far, like a half hour from New York City. And my mom would always watch the Regis and Kathie Lee show. So I was
Yeah.
very familiar with it because I heard it every morning growing up, getting ready for school. I was that eating my breakfast. My mom was making breakfast, watching it.
That's great. Well, speaking of your new book, Signs and Secrets of the Messiah, it's a wonderful book. And do you mind telling our listeners about this book?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we wrote this book for a couple of reasons. One, I'll never forget. I went out one year before the Super Bowl and I bought a high definition television. Everyone's like, it's going to change the way you see the game. And I'm like, this isn't so great. Then towards the end of the game, I'm flipping through the channels and I have a revelation. The higher channels are the HD channels. I watched the whole game in standard definition. And I was like, man, it really does make a difference when you watch it in
Yeah.
HD. And kind of our passion is to help people see Jesus and the Bible in high definition. But I think there's something else too. We live in a world where there's so many crazy things going on, from the economy to conflict in the world. And if you just look at it from a natural perspective, things seem pretty hopeless. But when you understand that we have a God who's not bound by the natural, but he is supernatural, and therefore he can change our situations and circumstances in a moment, it really does give us hope, and it builds our faith for the future. And I think that's why looking at the miracles of Jesus, especially in times like this, because we really believe that just like Jesus brought healing and wholeness and hope to people in the first century when he walked the earth, he still wants to do the exact same thing for us today.
Yeah. I will agree with you, Rabbi. This nation, it seems like every decade or every generation, it's like you always hear,
Mm-hmm.
man, this, when I was little, the world was not like this at all. And then growing up, I would hear my parents say, that. And then now I'm telling my kids, it was
Mm-hmm.
not like this at all. And it's true. Like the technology was nowhere near how it is today. And I mean, we have a lot going on in our world. And chapter 1 of your book, Signs and Secrets of Transformation, is a wonderful chapter. Could you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about the first miracle Jesus performed. We call it the sign and secret of transformation. It was the miracle that he performed at the wedding of Cana of Galilee, of the turning the water into wine. And I think it begs the question, of all the miracles he could have performed, why was this the first miracle he performed? Well, think about it for a moment. Part of what the New Testament is trying to show is he is the one whom Moses and the prophets spoke of. The Messiah was going to be a greater than Moses, who would bring a greater deliverance, a greater redemption. What's the first miracle Moses performed? He turned the water into blood. But Jesus, as the greater than Moses, doesn't turn it into blood. He turns it into wine. Why? Because he doesn't come to bring death. He comes to bring life, that we might have it more abundantly. So his first miracle is like the first miracle Moses performs. And then you think about it, when he dies on the cross, there's 3 hours of darkness. Why? Because there's 3 days of darkness during the 9th plague. The 10th plague is the death of the firstborn son. That's God's firstborn son hanging there on the tree for you and me. He dies on the cross. Why? Because man and woman took from the tree. So God puts back on the tree for you and me. He has a crown of thorns on his head. Why? Because he's taking the curse of creation, as the ground will produce thorns and thistles. He's taking the curse of creation on his head to reverse it and to restore the blessing. And so the turning the water into wine, fill the pots to the brim, is God showing he came to reverse the curse, to bring abundance. And he takes something ordinary like water and he transforms it into something extraordinary like wine. And that's exactly what he wants to do for each and every one of our lives. When the hand of
Mm,
Jesus touches us, we go from ordinary to extraordinary. We are one thing, and then we become something completely different.
mm. That's good. And not only did he turn it into wine, it was like unbelievable tasting. I love how the chosen in that episode where Jesus turns the water into wine, and the guys, they're just like, oh my gosh, this is like the best wine ever. Jesus doesn't halfway do it, he does it fully.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I think there's so many things, encouraging things in this miracle, like we talk about in Signs and Secrets of the Messiah. I mean, first of all, he only does the miracle when everything has run out. There's
Hmm.
nothing left. And that is so true. That how often does God work in our life like that? It's at the 11th hour. It seems like everything is lost. And I think part of the reason is that we have to come to an end of ourselves
Hmm.
before God can really begin to use us. Because oftentimes we're like, I'm going to try and solve it. I'm going to try and make it happen. And God's like, listen, you just got to come to an end of yourself and just give it to me and let me do it. And like you said, he says, fill the pots to the brim, not a quarter of the way, not halfway, to the brim, to the fullness, to the overflowing. He doesn't want us to live out of the lack. He wants us to live out of the overflow. And then they marveled that the best wine was saved for last. And that's such a powerful thing because that's his promise for our life. The best is yet to come. And I know things look crazy in our nation, but I think we have to have faith, crazy in the world, that the best can still come for us and God can move in powerful ways. And we have no idea what he wants to do, but we have to believe God for something bigger and better.
Amen to that. Yeah, we cannot do it on our own. So many times we tell God, we try to tell God, "Hey, I have this, I have it under control," and the whole time you're sinking, you're crumbling, and God's just waiting for you to say, "Okay, are you done? Have you learned your lesson? Let me work now. Let me do what I need to do."
We're just gonna give God a little hand, just a little hand, just a little help.
Talk about the secret of the six stone pots.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, again, I think part of what we're trying to do in the book is to show that every word in the Bible is significant. God doesn't waste words. If there's a detail in the Bible, he put it there for a reason. So
Mm,
he does the miracle. He says, they tell the attendants at the wedding, there's six stone pots that they say fill to the brim. Well, why six stone pots? Why not seven? The number of completion. Why not eight? Eight is the number of the supernatural. It's the number of the kingdom. Why six? Well, think about it biblically. Man was created on the sixth day. In Jewish thought, we fell on the sixth day. And when Jesus dies, he dies on Good Friday. Friday on the biblical calendar is the sixth day of the week. So on the same day man was created, on the same day man fell in Jewish thought, Yeshua, Jesus, comes and dies for our sins to reverse the curse and to restore the blessing. And he does the miracle with six stone pots, again, to show us he's restoring God's original intentional blessing. But there's something more, because we have to understand is that Hebrew is actually alphanumeric. What that means is that in the Bible, there is no Roman numerals. So if I want to say open up to chapter 1, I'll say open up to chapter Aleph, because Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet and it has the numerical value of 1. Well, the way that you write 6 in Hebrew is with the letter Vav. Why is that important? Because the letter Vav is also in Hebrew the conjunction and. The first place the Vav occurs, which is the sixth letter, has the value of 6, is in the sixth word of Genesis chapter 1:1, the first verse of the Bible. God created the heaven, Vav, and earth. When we
mm,
broke the Vav, when we sinned, we broke the Vav, the connection, the six between heaven and earth. Jesus dies on the sixth day to restore the connection. And the sign of the connection that he is restoring, his sneak preview, is the six stone pots filled to the brim, because it's pointing to the ultimate wedding supper of the Lamb. He does the first miracle at a wedding because we're going to be celebrating at a wedding with him.
mm.
And it all points back and connects together.
That's good. Was when you wrote this book, was there a specific like aha moment when you were writing this? Obviously, you studied to write this book and you know what you're going to write, but was there something like, even though you knew it, it's like, whoa, God gave you a fresh revelation on whatever. Was there
Yeah,
a moment like
absolutely.
that?
There's always those moments. I mean, I think one of the things that was really impactful and one of my favorite chapters in book is the sign and secret of the great catch, John 21. The disciples are fishing all night and they catch nothing. And Jesus says, throw the net again, throw it again, this time on the right side of the boat. What's interesting is that the Hebrew word for fish is also the root word for fear in Hebrew. So the disciples were fishing from a place of fear. That's why their nets were left empty. When we live from a place of fear, our nets are always going to be left empty. Then he says, throw the nets on the right side of the boat. Well, in Jewish thought, left is associated with judgment. It's associated with fire. It's associated with severity. The right side is associated with love and with kindness and with unity. And so when we live from a place of love, again, our lives, our nets are going to be full. When we live from a place of judgment and fear and severity and fire, our nets and our relationships are going to be left empty. It's so important to understand. It's so significant to grab hold of. And then it says they catch 153 fish. Well, if there's a detail 153, what does that mean? There's a lot of meaning to 153. But again, we said every Hebrew word has a numerical value because every letter is associated with a number. The numerical value of I am the Lord is 153. The numerical value of I am the Lord your Redeemer, Ani Adonai Elohecha, equals 153. So the great catch of fish was meant to show that Jesus is God made manifest in the flesh, 153, and that he is the Redeemer, 153, because only God and the Redeemer can do a miracle like that.
That's so good. I could just sit here all day and listen to you teach. Rabbi, will you tell us about Fusion Global?
Yeah, absolutely. Fusion Global is our ministry. It's about connecting old and new. It's about connecting Gentile and Jew. It's about connecting the Word and the Spirit. And it is our media and teaching ministry. So we have a number of TV shows, including The Chosen Unveiled, our spinoff show where we teach through every episode of The Chosen. We write books. We have something called Fusion Tribes, which is our Fusion small groups. People can start that with their friends and family. We provide the video and the study guide where they can join a Fusion tribe. We love taking people to Israel. So we take trips to Israel. So these are all the things that we do under Fusion Global to help people grow in their understanding of the word and become, go deeper into discipleship with Jesus.
That's great. Well, with our first time guest, we like to do a get to know you little thing, and we call it favorite things. And so I'm going to give you a word, and you just tell me your favorite thing.
Okay.
All right, Rabbi, what is your favorite food?
Okay, I think that could be sushi, probably sushi on a regular basis, or I
Okay.
do love a good pastrami sandwich, some Jewish deli.
Ooh, yeah, that's good stuff. Do you have a favorite movie?
Oh, a favorite movie. Oh my goodness, a favorite movie. Well, I grew up on Star Wars and Indiana Jones, so those are definitely Lord of the Rings. That's awesome
Mm.
too. So those are all top movies that I really love.
Have you seen the latest Indiana Jones?
I have seen the latest
Yeah,
Indiana Jones. Had to.
it was
It was,
great.
yeah, it was good. It was good.
Better than the Crystal Skull, the alien one.
Oh, that was horrible. That was
I don't know
horrible.
why they did that one.
But I will say it was fun. When we went to Petra in Jordan, the temple that they used was actually there in Petra in Jordan. So
Oh,
it was
cool.
cool to see. I was not only do we see some biblical stuff, but like, hey, Indiana Jones.
Is there a show that you like to watch or binge?
Oh man, I guess I have to say The Chosen, right?
There you go. That's funny. Is there a favorite book of yours?
Oh man, that is a great question. A favorite book of mine. Um,
Don't say
uh,
the Bible.
I'm trying to think. I got all these books around me. I'm trying to think
Yeah.
What's my favorite? What's my favorite book? I'm trying to think. I read a lot of Jewish books. I'm trying to think of a book that people would know. I read a lot of Bible commentaries. Um, I love C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. I love
Hmm.
Eric Bonhoeffer's Eric Metaxas book on Bonhoeffer. That was a great book that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite ice cream flavor?
Probably cookies and cream.
Yes, that's a good one. Do you have a favorite podcast?
Oh, a favorite podcast. That's a great question. I do like listening to sometimes I like listening to some of Joe Rogan stuff. I
Yeah,
find him really interesting and
he should
yeah.
have you on.
That would be fun. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Is there a verse that is ministering to you lately?
Yeah, I mean, I think I love in the Psalms where it says, I would have despaired unless I believed I'd see the goodness of God in the land of the living. And I also love it in Psalms I've been really meditating upon where it says, the nearness of God is my good. And to really think about how so much of God's goodness comes into our life when we really like seek to be near and close to him. And I just find there's so much distraction. It's so easy to get distracted, even just on my phone to start scrolling.
Oh
I
yeah,
have to put it down.
yeah, yeah. Yes, yeah, I get that. This is a Christian music podcast. Is there music that you like to listen to? Certain genres, certain artists, or what's that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I especially like to listen to worship music. So I love to listen to upper room worship. I love listening to uh, Maverick City. I love some of I love listening to some of the classics like Michael W. Smith or some of the old
Hmm.
Vineyard stuff. I enjoy, Casting Crowns. I got the opportunity to see Torrance Wells perform at an event recently. I love gospel. I love CC Winans.
Hmm.
Um, all that stuff is just really great. And I like listening to some of the Jewish music and Messianic music too. So yeah,
Sure.
and a little
Well,
hip
what?
hop and a little hip
There you
hop
go.
background.
We got to hear your. We got to hear your. Come on, break it down for us.
I do rap.
What? What? Do what?
I do rap for fun.
Okay, cool. What is next for you, and how can our listeners keep up with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can check us out at fusionglobal.org. That's our website, or Rabbi Jason Sobel on any of the social media platforms, including YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of those. So that's a great way to keep up with us. We have a TV series on TBN on Signs and Secrets of the Messiah that's going to be coming out this winter. And then we also, those are some of the things. Working on another book. So we're always doing something.
Yeah, I'm keeping you busy.
Absolutely.
Well, to wrap up, I'd like to see if you'd be willing to share something that God has been doing in your life, maybe even recently, that would help build our listeners' faith.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really think that one of the things that God has been just really impressing upon me is that there's a verse in the Psalms. It says this. It says, Esa Enai El Hehari Me'ain Yavosri in Hebrew. It says, I lift my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. And I think it's so easy to let our eyes look down. When I say look down, like look to what's going on all around us in the world. And I think when we look at the situation and the circumstances, it's easy to move into a place of fear. It's easy to move into a place of discouragement. And I feel like the Lord is just saying, stop looking around, stop looking down, and lift your eyes to me and keep your focus on me, the author and perfecter of the faith.
Mm.
Because I feel like, when he brought Israel out of Egypt, he said he brought them out of Egypt with their head held high. It's easy to get discouraged and hang our heads, but God says he's the glory and the lifter of our head. And I think we just need to continually be lifting our heads. And I think the other thing he's really saying, and lifting other people's heads, and I think the other thing that he's really speaking to me too is that from Matthew chapter 5, because there's so much conflict with as a rabbi with Israel and with what's going on in Gaza and with the
Mm.
Palestinians, and there's so much rising hate between against Israel and also sometimes towards Palestinians and all this sort of stuff. And it says in Matthew, Jesus says, you've heard it said, love those who love you, but I tell you, love those who hate you and pray for those who persecute you.
Yeah.
And I think we have to come in an opposite spirit. I think we need to love the people who don't love us. We need to pray for the people who don't like us. And we need to believe that Yeshua can touch people's hearts and draw to him, because I think it's really dangerous to look at the world and to allow hate or anger to enter into our hearts. And I think the more important thing is, instead of hating, we need to pray, because you can't hate or dislike people that you're praying for. It's very hard.
Yeah. That's good, Rabbi. Thank you for the encouragement. And go get your book. It's out now, or not you have it. But Signs and Secrets of the Messiah. It's available everywhere, I'm sure. Amazon, bookstores, your website. Um, Go get a copy and it'll be a blessing to you. So thank you so much again for chatting with me.
Yeah, shalom and blessing. Thanks for having me.